Welcome to Ascendle Unscripted, the show where we explore what it really takes to build, ship, and scale great software. Today, we're talking about a role that's often misunderstood, but absolutely mission critical in any successful tech organization, and that is product marketing. What is it? How is it different than product management? And how do you communicate complex tech value without getting lost in jargon? Joining me today are two experts who have lived on both sides of product engineering customer equation. Mike Lemons, a seasoned product marketing leader with a background in product management, and Ascendle's own unscripted veteran, Clint Edmonson, director of software engineering. Let's jump in. So, Mike, could you give us some context? Your path has been a pretty interesting one. You definitely didn't put the cart before the horse. I think you were in sales first, if I'm not mistaken.
I was. Thanks, Michael. I knew that I wanted to be in a marketing role back in undergrad. And when I was coming out of school, I thought I'm either going to do more of the kind of research side, some of that typical track, but I really wanted to make sure that I knew how to talk to customers and more importantly, hear what they really needed. So I started off, I spent several years in inside sales, lead generation kind of roles. I worked for a company very well known. I had a company car. I mean, it was awesome. I was absolutely loving it. And ultimately, like as that experience built, and I thought, I now feel really confident being able to understand what a customer is really asking and what they really need versus that Henry Ford, if they wanted, if I listened to what they wanted, I would have built a faster horse. So really being able to articulate that. So taking that sales background, that sales experience, translating it into the marketing function has been just an absolute blast for me.
Mike, thanks for that context. I'd love to stay on you and dive right in. A lot of people, even inside of tech, confuse product marketing with product management. How do you explain that difference?
One very clear cleave in my mind is one tends to be more technical. So product management, you are working with the development team directly, right? And you're working through your sprint plans, you're going through the QA process. The marketing side takes all of those great rich technical features that are being delivered and translates that to customer value and to benefit. In my experience, the folks developing the software are so incredibly smart and capable, but they can tell you what a button does, but they might be challenged with telling you how it would make a customer's life easier in a very direct fashion. And so that's really where the product marketing function comes in, is to work hand in hand with product management, not as a byproduct of the development work being done, but as a real seat at the table. And I think that's really where the value and the distinction is between product management and product marketing.
Mike, thanks for that. Clint, I see you nodding, and I had a question for you right off of what Mike was saying. From the engineering side, how do you experience the value of a strong product marketer? What does it look like when that function really works?
Oh, well, if you think about engineers, they're kind of in the middle of the life cycle of a product going to market. The marketing initially studies a market and determines a need, and then formulates some plan to put it together, build it, deliver it. And we get brought in the middle, and we get to build it and then see it go into the hands of customers and then see them being fulfilled by it. Um, I think, if anything, there's a gap there, that there's not enough empathy for the customer where we're brought in for the most part. And I learned this a long time ago. We were going to build a product, and we knew nothing about the customer. So we literally put our engineers on planes and had them go sit in the offices with customers to watch what they did before we wrote any lines of code. So being able to put yourselves in the shoes of your target customer, your target audience, I mean, that's just good communications in general, but to build a good product, you've got to really truly know who's going to use it.
Mm, mm. Jump in on that one, Clint?
Yeah.
Please.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was at a sales kickoff, and Guy Kawasaki, formerly of Apple, then with Canva, He was presenting, and I used the time at the end for the book signing. Let's skip the book signing. I want to ask this guy just one question, and that is, if you were in enterprise software product marketing, what's one piece of advice that you would give? And without hesitation, he wrote down, I've got it, I've got the scribble tucked away behind me, and it was verbatim: don't ask a customer to do something that you would not do yourself. And that really stuck with me. Like, in terms of when we send out an email or we ask a customer to give us feedback, would I do that? Would I click through that thing? Would I want to sit in on that panel to participate in that sort of product review cycle? So to your point, it really does instill a sense that you have to have that customer in mind, because if you don't, it's all too easy to get lost in, we met the objectives, we got the task done, and then now we're going to market, and it falls flat.
Yeah. You've got to be a fan of your customer. You've got to be a fan of your software that you're providing. Otherwise, you're never going to connect with them at a level where they really, truly love it.
Are there any instances, for the both of you, I would ask this, are there any instances where you do implement the Henry Ford? If I ask people what they wanted, it's like, because I forget who it is. Like, there was, some big CEOs like, well, I just make things. I don't ask people what they want. No, I just make them, and these things happen. Are there instances where the customer could hold you back? That there's somebody's a true visionary, something that's really a game changer. Where you're like, you know what, I'm going to go way out here, and people are eventually going to catch up. Are there any instances that look like that? I mean, is that just not a thing?
So almost being ahead of what the customer is asking for, and then educating them on the vision of that, why you did it, and then you also risk that it might take a while for that product or those features to be adopted. I mean, that's a real risk. I mean, that right there sets the stage for that fortune favors the bold, right? Where we're going all in. When I think about some of the companies that went all in on scaling up cloud technologies before you could even argue that they needed that much capacity, and now you look at it and some don't have enough. So can you lead the market, not just customer says they want the button to do this thing. Now you say, well, what are you really trying to accomplish? A mentor of mine for many many years, he taught me early on something that I stick to, which applies to your question succinctly, which is, um, there was a PSA commercial back in the day. It's called "When a Bill Becomes a Law." I know that's going to like completely date. If you have
I
know this,
know it. I
you're
know it.
we're dating ourselves.
Schoolhouse Rock. Yeah.
Hey, so there was this on when a bill becomes a law, and what it described was all the things that went into a bill becoming a law. And there's a lot of stuff before, there's a lot of stuff during, and then there's a lot of stuff after. And I think he prescribed that to me as a way to look at what a customer challenge. And to this day, right, it's I look at customer opportunities and customer challenges as, this is the thing that they're trying to do. But now if I look at what are they doing before that, are there opportunities to help the customer there? Are there opportunities to help the customer after our respective solution or feature? So how can we help even look at that last mile, see if is there anything that we can do to help expand that? So you're providing the solution to the immediate challenge, maybe in a way that they didn't anticipate, but you're also showing them that, look at all the other ways that you can connect to other solutions, that you can use this in your ecosystem. So bill becomes a law, what happens before and what happens after has always been a very, very helpful way to look at the scale of customer challenges.
Because I was going to ask about timing signals, Mike. Like, what are some, like, being too early or too late, right? Might be a great idea, but you're just too early, right? And it's like you're going to just burn through everything before anybody can really get their head around this or uptake it. Even though if it was a little later, it would have been a great idea. Is that what you were talking about to some degree with Bill Becomes a Law? Is there anything that you would like to elaborate on that? If I ask, how to look for timing signals and to make sure that it aligns with what's, there's going to be a good enough uptake to make this thing work?
That is a fine line, isn't it? I think we're seeing that right now in the news, right? We're seeing that with Apple, right? AI, are they they not implement it the right way? Is there that there's all this, and look, only they know. I simply share that because that is an example of, were they early enough? Or then did they do enough in time once they started getting into their product? And again, only they know. But I think that's a great example of, if you are, how can you be close enough to the bleeding edge, but also knowing that if you have customers who are a little risk averse, right? So all of the AI hype is terrific, but if your customers aren't really there and they're still a little conservative about it, you're going to be too early. If you go all in on an all AI solution, like, I don't want my stuff out there in the getting pulled from by all these tools. I don't want that. So you can absolutely be too early, man. 100%.
Right. Um, Clint, do you have anything to add there?
There's a fine line between genius and crazy. You look at, I mean, I was actually just reading about why did the US settle on 110 voltage and the Europe is 220. And it was, I mean, there were reasons for either. You talk to people that ask about how Edison came up with it, and then Tesla was his competitor at the time, and they fought in the market for dominance. Even a good idea isn't always going to win. It does take understanding your consumers at a broad scale, not just one consumer, but seeing a bigger picture, and then a little bit of tenacity and there's timing, no doubt, being in the right time with the right solution and gaining enough traction that you outpace your competitors and take over. And I mean, anybody who wants to study how to do a transformational change to an industry, look to the past, because it's nothing new. And these guys were way ahead of their time. I mean, there's still people, with lamps and horses going around and their cars zooming by them with electric headlights. you know, I don't know. It's just fascinating.
Can we talk about you being to a degree translators and not just promoters? So for Mike, touching on what you were saying a little earlier, um, you know, product marketing is about translating complexity into to relevance for the customer. What do you think the hardest part of the translation process is?
Hardest part of the translation process. I was just a couple weeks ago. I was down at my alum, DePaul University, speaking to a product marketing panel. So this is their grad students coming together, and there were four of us on this product marketing panel, and we all had very different perspectives, different backgrounds, different ways to get to product marketing. But one thing that came up in those discussions, I think, is relevant to this question, which was, okay, I understand the business strategy. If Michael Porter would be proud of me for all the different things that I know about management, right? All those great things. But what's the most important thing? And I think there, you talk about the translation. It's coming up with that decision. What's our positioning, and then implementing the hell out of it. No joke. I mean, it is that simple. That's Professor told me that 25 years ago, and that sticks with me. That is almost or even as important as what the actual strategy is itself. So if I know that I'm translating that this software solution, the space that I'm in, that the software solution will absolutely handle some very, very complex, sort of global based challenges. Now, if I'm speaking to that person and we're espousing the value and the benefits of the software being able to do that, I have to do it in a way that is technical enough so there's some credibility, but more importantly, there's some understanding that I understand what they're up against right now. But there's also, I have to absolutely come up with and stand by those pillars of what that message is. So that translation, if you start to waffle on it and, well, it's called this thing, and then, well, it really has these features, so let's kind of change our positioning. Of course, you want to be able to adjust. You want to be you want to have you want to be stubborn in your focus, but you also want to be flexible in the details for how it gets there. Because if you're not, you start kind of drifting, and then that starts to undermine the credibility. So being able to translate it, and it's as simple as, there are customers that are, if you've got the right product and you're treating the customers right, they'll be more than happy to pick up a phone and talk to you. Hey, I'm a product marketer. Here's this thing that we're delivering. Does this resonate to you? And if it does, how? And if it doesn't, how? Go literally straight to the customer.
It's often overlooked. You could just ask.
Yeah, I said it earlier. It's an empathy play, right? You could look at every product that's been successful and beat other products and say that they knew more about their customer and had a better connection to their customer than the ones that didn't. And that's why they won, even if the product wasn't superior. Happens time and time again.
Mike, you gave me a quote here to be stubborn and focused, but flexible in delivery of what you're doing. Love that. Um, Clint, I just want to stay on you for a second. Do you ever find that engineers assume that the product speaks for itself and no translation needs to happen because they're like, well, here you go. Here it is.
And for that reason, we're very careful which engineers we put in front of customers. Yeah. I mean,
um, Go ahead.
engineers are completionists, right? You give them a set of tasks or a set of problems and they will solve it, and they will solve it 150% complete, regardless of why they're solving it necessarily or who it's for, right? So like I said, we used to literally put our engineers on planes and say, go sit with a customer, because I can't have you writing software and building a product that you don't understand why you're doing it. You're not going to make smart decisions day to day in the moment in your job if you don't have a goal in mind of satisfying a user or a customer need. It doesn't work.
Right. Um, Mike, going back to the college experience and when you were speaking, um, so helping college guys understand what a path into product marketing looks like. What specifically would you want them to know?
The most specific and the most helpful piece of advice I could give here that I gave at that panel was to understand that this is not very likely going to be a linear path. Right now, there might be a situation where, okay, I've gone through, I got the Harvard MBA, then I went to Kinsey, and then I went to this. Now, that absolutely happens. That wasn't my experience. That wasn't my academic performance that would line up to that. So here we are. But in all seriousness, the one thing that always cuts through the clutter, that ensures that someone gets to where they want to be, including in product marketing, is you have to know what the customer's up against. You have to know what their challenges are. And I'm not talking about in a product. I'm talking about when they sit down and start their day, where do they spend the most time that they don't like, that they know that I should not be spending this much time doing manual work. I know that there's a better way. Like, understanding that, then from there we can back into the software can do anything, right? There is no shortage of what software can be programmed to do. Now it's a matter of prioritization. Right now it's a matter of understanding that, well, we're going to pursue this feature set, or we're going to launch this product because we know this to be a challenge. Well, many customers aren't going to stand and raise their hand and say, hey, I've got a huge challenge over here, can you help me solve it? It's great if they do, but oftentimes they don't. So you're learning. The only way you learn what their challenges are sitting with them. And maybe that's as informal as I mentioned before. It's a call to the customer. It's understanding what they're up against. It could also be something as formal as a contextual inquiry kind of rigor around your development process. Sitting down, as Clint's mentioning there, sitting with a customer. Don't tell me what you're doing. Don't explain it. Just let me just observe what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you could be driven and be even maniacally driven to understand the challenges that a customer is up against, that translates into everything. And that's something that is, unfortunately, I've seen lost at various levels in a given in given organizations. But that is one path. And the other thing is the mentors. Mentors are such a big part of this whole thing. I'm fortunate enough now to work with and for a key mentor I've had. I've had contact and continue to be in contact with a mentor from my undergrad, right? Like, people are happy to help. So now, like, leverage those resources. This isn't like I'm just going to link. Here's what I see. To be honest, I see give a talk, meet with some folks, whatever it is, get a LinkedIn connection. That's great. It's fine. Let's do that. But that doesn't mean we're engaged as a mentor, as a mentor mentee relationship, right? Like, get to know each other, spend the time. Where are they trying to go? How can what I've learned, the times that I've stubbed my toe, how can I help that person? So there are many, many ways to it, Michael, but I'll tell you that it is a fascinating space to get into once you get there.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that too. So in almost every major city, there is some incubation hub. And there's no better way to learn than to get your reps in. And you're going to do that on small, brilliant ideas that don't have a lot of funding that you can practice on and you can try. I mean, I've worked on dozens of products at this point. Your first product is probably not going to be the best one, but you've got to go through those 10,000 hours of repetition, right? And so getting exposure and working on them either formally for a company or informally through an association with an incubator group, or even just practicing it and pitching, uh, huge to get your confidence, to get your experience, and to start to really try to translate how to talk to a customer in a way that they'll listen.
Yeah.
Repetitions, it feels like, cannot be underestimated. And it feels like that's also something that is often overlooked. Just getting the repetitions in and not going from A to Z, but from A, B, C, and Mike, this is the first time us meeting, but I have an acting background, and Michael Caine would say, I, I work as much as I can, even if the movies were awful. He's like, and the reason being was, he's like, I do 10 bad movies. And then when the good one would arrive, he's like, I've been working constantly. He's like, then the other actor is like, no, I'm not going to do bad movies. So when the good one arrives, he hasn't been working at all. He's been sitting in his apartment for 2 years. Who do you think is going to be more effective on set? The guy who's been working for 2 years nonstop and then gets there. So I think also, like, something to look at, like, for the basics, even just talking to students, like, repetitions matter. And I can't tell you how many of my students in the business school at UNH have never heard of a LinkedIn interview or a informational interview. I'm like, legit, just go to people that you want, to mirror, whose career path might, be something that you want to, a path that you might want to follow, and just ask them, hey, could I have 10 minutes for an informational interview? They're shocked because 99.9% of the time, people are like, sure, happy to, no problem. Yeah, I love hearing that. Clint, I got to ask, before we move on, do you need to know code to work at a tech company?
Not at all. No, you need to know people. As Mike
Mm.
said, you've got to understand the need. And as you said, sometimes the user will tell you what they need, but observing them in action will tell you a different story than what they're telling you. A lot of times the users are also some form of technician, right? They're in a role and they're doing the process that their company's taught them to do. And they're asking for a better horse. They're not asking for a paradigm shift in the way they do their work. Their bosses might be, and the company that ultimately wants to buy your software is looking for, how can I have a complete pivot in the way I do this to make it faster, less costly, higher satisfaction, right? And you're not necessarily going to get that from the day-to-day user.
Yeah. So Clint, go ahead, Mike, please.
I, I've experienced this. I've experienced this where you learn, where you talk, you sit down with a customer and you're trying to understand what they're doing because you've got an idea for a product, but you're not quite sure. So you're doing some investigating, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, no, this is automated. I just type this in here, and then I type that in there, and then the data, like, oh my gosh, that's what they think is automated, right? I mean, it's so tongue in cheek, but in our sort of sense, we would expect that whether we're talking like a full blown ETL kind of thing, or whether we're talking about, Power Automate, I do a thing here and then it goes there and then it does it for me. That feels automated, but to this person, instead of entering it 10 times, they entered it 5 times. So that was value to them. So knowing what someone means, because we say automation, right? Like we say that word. AI is right up there as far as I'm concerned. AI versus ML, and well, one's this and one's that, and but then your customer's like, I don't know. I just want it to be able to give me an answer faster, and then and start from there. But yeah, it's really that simple, guys.
So there's 2 points of translation here. Earlier in the episode, we were talking about translating the software to the customer. But what I'm hearing also, Mike, is that you need to translate what the customer is saying into the software in a way, or even just translate what they're saying because they're like, it's totally automated. You're like, well, walk me through it. And then they give you 700 steps. You're like, okay, hold on a second. Like, right. So let me ask you this, like, shared, preference versus revealed preference, or, that kind of thing. How do you, before we move on to the next segment, I would love to know what translation looks like working with a customer when they tell you, oh, it's automated, I'm good to go. And then you realize, not so much. Yeah.
You don't want to make fun of them.
No, no.
Yeah, it is a great question. How do you marry the two? How do you take what they and honestly, they've probably put some time and effort into that, right? Like they've gone through some steps to cut it down from 10 to 5. And you acknowledge that, but in some cases we get we get so kind of siloed and blinders on where we might not even come to think that, geez, there are some just out of the box things out there that can help me get from I went from 10 to 5 and now I can go from 5 to 1. But we cannot throw so much at them so quickly where they're like, well, okay, now you've automated me out of a job. Well, no, that's not what we've done, right? We've put you in a position where you can now use that time to do more value added work. So I guess the shorter way to answer that, Michael, is absolutely acknowledging and appreciating what they've done and articulating that to them, and then showing them a way that will absolutely advance their workflow, but not completely overwhelm them. Because if you do, and if it's a lot more than what they're ready for, then even if it's terrific, you risk low adoption,
Got
right?
it.
So here's another concept. You don't have to make one decision. We all think we have to pick one path. Software is so cheap and so fast to deliver now. Why not implement it one or two or three ways, get it in front of users and let them react to it? And so you don't limit your options until you know what's going to work. That's what a savvy business person would do. An engineer wouldn't think of that, but a business person thinking, how do I satisfy a market would think of that.
Yeah, I just read something this week. It was a CEO of a tech company, and he described, get the prototype as fast as you can, right? Just get the prototype. You know it's not going to be perfect. You know it's going to be lumpy and not pretty, but the lessons you learn in developing it to prototype and then getting it out there and then getting the feedback. I mean, in sales, one of the most valuable things you can capture is the no, right? When you're presenting an opportunity for a solution and you hear nothing, that's the worst, because you have, was it me, was it the product, was it the timing, I have no information. When it's a yes, that's the thing we want always. But when it's a no, that's an opportunity to learn, because I'm not going to learn when a customer goes and signs up and then moves on and is happy. That's not really going to help me. That's not going to help the salesperson, help the product marketing team to say, hey, next time we really need to go in with this approach and this content, these slides, these talking points. We have to get to that no quickly. We have to learn very quickly. And the only way to do that is just to get out the gate and go.
So it sounds like friction, at least some degree of friction, is an important part of the process.
Yeah. I think friction might also be a person's mindset, Michael. If you're a, glass half full, glass half empty, if you go into this thing and you do get to prototype, you get it out there quickly, you start getting customer feedback. And if it's overwhelmingly maybe not great, well, see, I knew it. Wait, we tried this and it didn't work. Or you look at it the other way and think, wow, we got feedback. Great. We got feedback. We know what they don't want or what they think they don't want. Okay, good. So let's go back and let's look at that again. Yeah, if it's all nice and smooth, me personally, if I speak about my career, I have not learned much from when things went smooth and great. I don't know about you guys. I mean, that's great. Like the
Yeah,
time spent on the front line doing product demos in front of customers, I spent a lot of my career doing that, and the insights that I learned from that, and the insights from the bad demos, from the software, showing new stuff that's not right, doing all those things, that 100% helped informed my experience than the nice, easy, smooth stuff.
yeah, I would substitute the word friction for reaction. I want a reaction positive or negative. I don't want crickets because then I don't know if I succeeded or not. But if I succeeded, I get overwhelmingly positive feedback. If I failed, I get negative feedback that will point me in the better direction. And then you can react quickly and adjust and and learn from it. Right.
So, in the, I guess we'll call the go to market gauntlet, if you will, when it comes to launching a new product or a feature, what do most teams get wrong in the go to market planning phase, Mike?
One thing that teams can get wrong in the go to market phase when they're launching a product is that they did not involve the sales, product marketing teams early enough. I have seen this so many times where out comes this great product, this hype, right? This ROI has been calculated and the revenue projections and all the great stuff is moving along. Then it's presented to sales either right before or as it's being launched. And they're like, I don't, I mean, I could kind of see it, but you didn't get their buy in from the beginning, one, but really you didn't get their feedback either. So I'm going to show them, we're going to work and we're going to show the folks who are on the front line way earlier in the pipeline, right? Not towards the end, towards, okay, now it's time to launch. Okay, now, hey, sales guys, here you go. Like involve them early on and get them involved in the pricing. Typically, well, a lot of sales folks will just see pricing is too much. And then you kind of take that with a grain of salt. At the same time, like if you get their feedback and they have, okay, so that customer would definitely go for this or that they wouldn't go for that, get them involved earlier. That is, of all the 87 pieces of advice I could give, that is the number one is involving and including, selfishly speaking, including product marketing at the very top of that funnel when those features are being discussed and developed and iterated. They're way up here. Absolutely.
If you go back in the Ascendle Unscripted library, this is not the first time a guest has said precisely that. Getting folks together earlier in the process on the same page and communicating rather than waiting till near the time to go to be like, oh, by the way, we have this and this is what it is. So that's definitely a point well taken, Mike. Thank you very much for that. Clint, do you see tension, or where do you see tension emerge between PM engineers, product marketers during a launch?
That's a tough question. I mean, at the most of the time, by the time the engineers are done with it, they're either working on the next version or they're onto something else. But I do want to piggyback off of what Mike said. If you don't enable your sales and marketing forces and have them excited about what you're going to launch, it's going to fizzle. And you'll lose that entire evangelism department of people out there in contact with your market, not talking about the thing you just spent 2 years building. And so that's a big fail. So as far as where do I see it fizzle? If the engineers built the wrong thing, going to find out real quick, right? It's not going to splash in the market. It's going to hit the water and sink right to the bottom. Alignment, right? I think I said, engineers are in the middle of the life cycle. Marketing should know and identify a marketing need early on, or a market need, vet it, analyze it, design the right appropriate product to bring to market, and then on the tail end, keep the sales and engineering folks involved so they see the product as it's being developed and they get excited about it as it moves closer and closer to being finished, so that when you do launch, everybody's jazzed. The engineers felt they built something valuable. They're going to go to market, and your entire marketing and sales departments are going to just invade the market with it.
Evangelism is a key part of that enablement strategy. And I'm sure that's not in it. That might not be in a business book about, make sure you've got an evangelist, but I will tell you, as in product marketing now and having worked in several enterprise software companies, that unless you feel evangelical, truthfully, about the product that you're supporting and that you're getting to market, move on, right? Because it's so hard. There's only so long that you can bear with a product or a company that you don't really believe in. It comes out like you're the voice.
Yeah, I
And
think you and I are both big fans of Guy Kawasaki, and if any marketing person listening to this does not read Selling the Dream by Guy Kawasaki, you are doing yourself a disservice. It is both an inspiration and a playbook for how to get people excited about your product and market. 100%.
You've you have to have that belief in it. I mean, there's just I can, of all the things we've talked about today, I can stand by the statement that there is it's you're not going to be successful being doing in product marketing, in product management, or in a function that you don't believe in the product. And part of the belief too is actually knowing and being in the product. Like if you're in product marketing and you're supporting a given set of products or features, like you need to know how it works. You need to be in there. You need to have a login to it. You need to understand when I click this and it does this, and this is why this is valuable. You gotta roll your sleeves up here. I mean, that's what I've got right here, right? Like you gotta roll them up and try to get into it because
100% agree. If you're going to go into the software business in particular, you have to be a fan of software. If you're just showing up because it's a product you think you can make money out of it, you might make some money. But if you're not a true fan and truly love working with the digital product and the magic that it can provide to customers, yeah, your heart's not going to be in it.
Is there anything that you all would like to impart that we may not have covered as we're wrapping up here?
I think I just gave mine. Be a fan of software, learn and use lots of different kinds of software, do it with a critical eye. What do you love about this? What do you hate about it? Why is this product more successful in the market than this other one? And you'll begin to see, how to empathize with customers and why they choose certain paths. And that just takes good observation skills and time. And again, lots of exposure to software.
be a sponge. Like that was one thing. Um, Current role and prior roles. When you're supporting software in an area that you didn't necessarily go to school for, that you didn't, do the work at one point in your career, just soak it in and pair yourself up to that SME that can help you. And this goes back to the comment about the mentors, like the people that can help you. This goes back to making sure that you are in the product marketing team, that you're aligned, right? That you are aligned very closely, if not part of the product management function, right? If you're Many companies espouse to be product led, but what does that actually look like to do it? Well, you've got to be in this role, you've got to be part of products, right? And um, various industries and solutions, like you can absolutely get away with not being a part of product, but in enterprise software, man, you got to be tight and close, and you've got to be able to, even on a very practical sense, I got to be able to reach out. I know that developer or I know that product manager. They know that I know my stuff, and I'm not going to go to them and say, can you give me something you've already given me access before? Because I've been that sponge and I've listened and I've instilled that when I'm talking to that customer, whether it's an annual conference or whether it's a regional meeting or whether it's a phone call getting some feedback about the new features. Be that sponge, take your blinders off, listen to what they're actually saying and not pushing our own. Well, I've got what that we're just full of great sayings today, but the if you've got a hammer, you'll find a nail, right? So, oh, you like that feature that I just showed you and talked to you about for 20 minutes? Hey, look, victory. Well, I mean, let's hopefully that's the case, right? We all hope, but we're also not going to see the full potential if we don't go from all the way before our product came in, then what our product does, and then all the things after. And you're not going to see that full ecosystem of possibility for your solutions if you're keeping a very myopic view and really listening to the customer.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've seen too many teams lock in on one idea or one solution and bet the farm on it, and it just didn't get the customer where they needed to be. So keep flexible, keep open mind, and always be learning. What's out there.
So, whether you're a product manager, an engineer, rising marketer, what we're hearing loud and clear here is that building great software takes more than code. It takes communication, it takes empathy, someone willing to put their name, face, and energy out there on behalf of the work. Mike and Clint, thank you both. And thank you, audience, as always, for listening to this episode of Ascendle Unscripted. Until next time, build smart.